Welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver. How's it going, man? How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I feel like I just saw you, man, but that's because we had a little business meeting earlier today. So it's good to see you twice in one day. And
yes.
When was the last episode we did? Was it last week? Are we crazy? Are we crazy people doing 2 weeks in a row? Oh my God, like a podcast or something?
Yeah, it's almost like we've been sticking to the structure. Shit.
So now that we're doing an episode again after only a week, and we've seen each other twice in one day, we do have some things to talk about. Obviously, we've had 2 matches, one in the Bundesliga, one in the Champions League. We've got a BVB FRAUEN update we'll get to a little bit later. We'll preview the upcoming Freiburg match, and then just looking ahead of the calendar, man, we got Freiburg, we got Gladbach, and then it's the winter break, and hopefully we get some maybe signings in. That's when things get a little exciting. I don't have anything. I don't want to like ruin the spoiler or anything, but like I don't want to say like I've got some hot breaking transfer news because I don't. Because who knows? I don't think Dortmund ever really has that stuff that's too much. It's not that gossipy because you never really know what's going to happen. Usually like expectations are just low, or that way you just don't get disappointed when we don't sign that many players.
So especially in January in the winter market too. We were not, I don't know. Maybe we'll be surprised.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get something nice for Christmas. Carver, I don't know why you took off your reindeer antlers that you had on earlier, just before we started recording.
I was going to do it next episode, but
just test them out. Sorry
maybe
to
they'll
spoil
come back
that
on.
too.
Yeah.
So we got some matches to talk about, and let's start with the win this weekend. I'm sure there's some wins to talk about with BVB FRAUEN, but first let's talk about hosting Hoffenheim at home and getting the 2-0 win with Brandt getting a goal, Schlotterbeck getting a goal, and a Hoffenheim squad that has been doing pretty well this season so far too. And I think the match kind of led up to, it didn't lead up to it, but like that's kind of what we saw in this match. It was a pretty good match, and I'm happy that we were able to pull out the win, especially with a little more disappointing results lately or getting knocked out of the Pokal, where I'm feeling a little bit down, but it was nice to get this win. But let's start with the lineup before we dive into it all. Kobel in goal, Ansamino getting the start again. We're going to talk about kind of rotation, what we've been seeing in the squad later. I like that, seeing him, although, again, spoiler, he got injured in the Bodø Glimt game. But nice seeing him getting a start and getting some real rotation, because I think when we brought him in, especially so last minute, we weren't quite sure, like, is he just going to be depth? Is he just going to be a squad player? So I'm happy to see, like, he's made an impact in every match that he's played in. So I'm happy to see him get the start again. We have Anton in the center back position as well with Schlotterbeck. Kuto and Svensson are wing backs with Sabitzer and Mecha in the middle. And up top, we got Adeyemi, Brandt, and Guirassy gets the start in the striker position. Any thoughts?
No, at this point, like 6, maybe 6, 7. I can't. No. Sorry.
Delete.
It was good. As it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, I hate myself. 6 or 7 players in this team, or positions, I should say, in this team, are pretty much a lock for the starters at this point. And then there are a few other, profiles that you can kind of pick apart on. I think, midfield is one of those things. Mecha seems to be a lock. You could argue Bellingham too, but there's still some rotation between Sabitzer and him. Those two really have been fighting for that spot. Up top with Adeyemi, you want to say Guirassy, but who knows at this point with him. And then you kind of need, if we do run that 3-4-3 on occasion, another argument for that other third person in the front line. Other than that, everyone else is pretty much a lock for a start in this team.
And then, getting into the match, this is obviously, I would say it was a pretty tight match. If you look at the statistics and you look at, if you're just watching it too, like Hoffenheim definitely had the chances to maybe win, definitely get a draw. And things went our way. We were able to pull through. I'm happy that we were able, I don't want to say escape with the clean sheet. We were able to hang on to the clean sheet. But it was a tough match. And it was an exciting one to watch, and one where I kind of walked away feeling like, okay, that feels better, even with it being a little shaky at times. Like, I'm glad that we were able to pull out the result, and this one went our way.
Yeah, Hoffenheim, like we mentioned last week, has taken a few people by surprise this year. Even after the loss, they're still in the top 5 in the Bundesliga. They're a pretty physical team. They play their football with lots of direct and intense play, lots of runs, lots of long balls. They did have moments of finding and exploiting space down the left-hand side. But like you mentioned in the end, the XG wasn't really too different between Dortmund and Hoffenheim. It's just one team was more clinical and effective in their chances. Dortmund did have some moments themselves, of course. There was a few good combinations in that central channel. We managed to actually score from a build-up, which is kind of like a collector's item. I mean, I see one of those or maybe two of those a season at this point. That's actually directly all the way from a build-up, getting everyone involved. Real team goal, that short passing and bursts of speed resulted not only the goal, but the chances leading up to it. Some good positioning on Brandt's part to be at the end of that cross here, at the end of the nice team play as well. But yeah, just like a deserved victory in the end. Hoffenheim didn't capitalize on their chances, and Dortmund did.
Yeah, and I mean, they did lead possession. I know ball possession isn't everything with 57%. I mean, that could also play into that we have the lead and they're pushing hard. But they did have more shots, and then shots on target 4-3, 2 big chances each. Again, like stats were pretty even, some leaning towards Hoffenheim, but that's also because they're pushing and they're trying to get back into it. And yeah, I don't know. Like there were so many moments where I'm like, I mean, so many when just missed chances on them too, but where it's like, it was just tight. And I think I'm not saying that like it was tight and that concerns me. Like we said, Hoffenheim is a good team. And I almost take that way as like, we were able to be at a good team. We were able to just pull through, which I think maybe last week I was down quite a bit. Just the Pokal exit is stings a bit. And just now we focus on it. We still have Champions League to focus on obviously too, but in the Bundesliga is where we really want to see good results week after week. And it's tough being in or sitting in third on 28 points, only 1 point behind Leipzig, which is good. Bayern kind of running with it, 37 points, which is it's just disappointing. Cause I think I came out last week. If you missed it, we were on with Jake and Beeflam from 50 Plus Donner, who, if you haven't tuned in their show, I mean, we tell you to all the time, so I don't know why you're not, but they cover they are quote unquote neutrals. They have no bias off the record on the record. They are definitely neutrals. But I like they're showing that they just cover the Bundesliga in general. And it's fun to talk to them about the league and why it's so great. And a lot of it is like the fan support. And we talk about it all the time, and the Dortmund fans, but it goes across the board with fans in Germany and how they support teams in this league and this fight to Bundesliga and kind of everywhere in the Pokal. But then I'm thinking more about it. I'm just going on a Bundesliga rant, and I'm sorry. But when I just see Bayern so many points ahead, and year after year after year, I don't want to say Farmers League, but I just wish there could be a little more competition with Bayern. And I want us to be that competition. It was nice that we had the refresher with Leverkusen coming in and winning a couple years ago, obviously. But that's where I'm like, where are my... all this is coming down to where are my hopes and expectations for the year. Like, I don't want to just be satisfied with securing top 4. Like, I want to push beyond that. And that's why I think the Pokal thing stings more, because that was a trophy that I expect us. That's where I really set my expectations, just the current state of the Bundesliga. And it's like, it feels like there's no chance of catching Bayern. So I'm sorry, I just kind of went on a Bundesliga rant, Carver, but
yeah, the competition, I think, this season Bayern are, of course, making a bit of a gap between them and anyone below them. But in recent years, there's been a little bit more competition. It's just not really from Dortmund. We had the opportunity a few years back under Terzic, and since then and before that, there hasn't been really a real sniff at as being title challengers. And a big part of that is not putting games away like we've seen. I mean, Hoffenheim, yes, but Bodø, Glimt in the Champions League, 6 or 7 other games that we've talked about this season plenty of times on the show alone. That's the difference right there. Bayern gets the job done and we don't. And yeah, things have to change, of course, too. The mentality, the ambition, the overall lack of courage to, be a title challenging team. And now we're putting ourselves in position for Champions League too. I mean, the focus was now off of Pokal. You only have 2 competitions to really, put all your energy in. And now at this point, I wasn't expecting to go super far in the Champions League, but we're really in a position now after this tie against Glimt.
Yeah, and before you get into that Champions League match, that rant obviously started from me just saying like I'm really happy with the result against Hoffenheim, and I'm glad that again we were able to grind that out. And if you take out the Pokal loss and you look at our last 2 wins being beating Hoffenheim 2-0 and then the away win at Leverkusen, while I was a little more upset last week ditching out on the Pokal, like how do you see Dortmund, I guess, competing in the rest of the Bundesliga? I know we're not even in the winter break yet, and it's really hard to say. But do these last two Bundesliga matches give you some like positivity and I guess hope for Dortmund in the league?
Yeah, but we need to finish this year strong, because anytime I start to think we're really picking up a little bit of momentum, this team continues to be a pancake and flip every 2 or 3 days. I don't know what I'm going to get at this point. It's a pretty general feeling across the supporter base from what I see, and it's not a thing exclusive to me with my feelings. You don't know what you're going to get with this team, even in late in a game whenever you're in a really solid winning position is too. We're prone to putting ourselves in positions to make mistakes, shoot ourselves in the foot, and make things really, really unnecessarily difficult.
Yeah. And I mean, that's feels like what's been like just being a Dortmund fan over the last so many years. And that's also the perfect transition in this Champions League match with Bodø Glimt, where we come into this, we're playing at home with a way bigger club. Obviously, this is Bodø's first. I don't know how to reference this team either. I don't know if it's Bodø Glimt. I don't know why they have a slash in their name. I don't know. I'll just call them Bodø from here on out. But small club, first time in the Champions League. They haven't won a Champions League match yet, which I say like to be expected. But they have had some decent results, and they come to the Westfalenstadion, and again they get a result here, getting the point where they just kept fighting back. And like the Hoffenheim match where those stats were very, very even, this one was all Dortmund, but they were able to capitalize on their chances. Their keeper had a great match, made some big saves, but like we had so many shots. We were just kind of dominant in the game, but this sport is it's about moments, and it's about capitalizing on those moments. And that's exactly what they were supposed to do. Before we get into it, jumping back in the lineup, Kobel in goal, Anselmino, Anton, and Schlotterbeck are three center backs. Kuto coming in on the wing back on the right side with Benzabaini getting the start on the left. Bellingham gets the start alongside Mecha. Then we see Bayer, Brandt, and Silva gets the start up top. Any thoughts on this?
No, Kuto with another deserved starting spot here. I didn't touch on him too much for the Hoffenheim game, but he's been a real bright spot as well these past few weeks. Whether it's, he looks like he knows what to do with the ball at his feet. As much as praise that I give Ryerson, I think Kuto's been giving him a real healthy challenge in terms of competition this season. He continues to improve. He continues to be a menace down the right-hand flank, set up a lot of goals here, but just be an option out on those wide areas to really send in some quality balls. So credit to him. I also got to give some credit to Brandt for it, as even in recent memory, for having a lot of stinkers lately. He has been consistently putting himself back up on the board. What do we got, Jay? What do we got? All right. Yeah, we never left. Credit to him too. And like you mentioned, there's plenty of chances that we had in this game, but there was also, and Glimt continued to fight back, but Dortmund also, like Schlotterbeck mentioned, and his post-game words here that a lot of people have already read and seen, but he talked about after halftime and after going up, we started to play pretty sloppy. There was a lot of poor passes, a lot of poor first touches. Looked like a lot of careless play too. I mean, from the players on the field and then definitely on the subs too. Adeyemi comes on, back to committing fouls again and not doing much of anything else. Guirassy sucking at this point and looking like he doesn't really care either. Like, how many, was it 2 games in a row? Was it Hoffenheim or the game before that? Definitely in this Glimt game, where he tries to do a bicycle kick where he wasn't even really close. And then like whiffing open shots too. There was the shout for a penalty, you could argue, against Hoffenheim, but he still goes down a little easy there. And, in this one too, he's whiffing shots. I mean, it's real concern. But, you leave the door open for a competition in terms of Fabio Silva, who in this game was really, really, revitalizing with his energy. Again, his off-ball movement. He's got some really quality crosses in him. I didn't really expect him to be someone like that with his service. Finding himself in the half spaces, at times even a little wider than that, and whipping in some really dangerous balls. Continues to get assists in this team. Continues to be pretty solid with just his overall play on the ball with his first quality touches and his technical ability. But not enough. And Dortmund continued to leave the door open for opponents to come back in and just give them hope. And you cannot do that at this stage. You cannot do that when you're at home. And especially like you mentioned before, the resources at your disposal as a club, and just, the financial gaps there, it shouldn't happen. No matter how much you want to talk about, like, of course you can't underestimate Glimt. Of course they're going to fight for everything that they have. Dortmund still have the means to pull off a game like that, and we're unfortunately left disappointed again.
Yeah, well, I think you hit it when you talked about it. Just the players. I don't remember the word you used, but to me, like the performance felt a little like lackadaisical, or like the players
Careless.
careless. Yeah, careless. Like they underestimated they weren't up for the occasion. I think they just thought it was going to be a bit of a cakewalk, especially getting it wasn't too early, but getting a goal fairly early in the 18th minute. Like I think they're just kind of on cruise control, and they just think it's going to be nice and easy, and that's obviously not how things ended up going. It is that where I think we've definitely been a way better, like we've had a better mentality as a team with Kovac coming in, but this is a slip up. You could probably argue there's been some game. Obviously, I'd say the games where we've given up the really late goals, Hamburg, St. Pauli. That's obviously not a great look when I'm talking about we've been a better mental team. But I think from where we were overall, we are better. We're still having these lapses, and this game felt like a big one. It wasn't necessarily giving up the late goal, but it was letting them get into it and just, like you said, be careless.
That's like 15
throughout.
minutes
Yeah.
too, you know? I mean, it's still at the tail end of the game. It's a mentality thing that still continues to be a bit of a problem. Also just game management too. Kovac has, been no stranger in the 10 or plus months, whatever he's been here at this point, to making some really bizarre decisions in terms of game management, whether it's the timing of the subs, the selections there. I mean, I don't know. He talks about like the super high level of competition in the team. And that's why it's so hard for players like Duranville to get in, when everyone knows that this team is lacking the quality and creativity that Duranville brings to a team like this. Of course, I'm not seeing him in training. I doubt at this point he is any worse than Bayer. Kovac talks about this competition, but we're seeing Bayer put in some really, really underwhelming performances this season on a pretty consistent level. And I think a front three of Adeyemi, Duranville, and I don't know, Silva at this point. I don't know what the deal is going to be with Guirassy, but I mean, that could be an argument for actual competition. But, you saying one thing and then just doing another and continuing to select with the same players over and over, you're going to get the same results. And as much as I want to see some real change, I hope I'm wrong. I'm imagining Kovac is just going to keep sticking with it. And this season, or this weekend, against Freiburg, we're going to see Bayer again over Duranville. And I don't know what that back line is going to look like either. You had a Sule on the bench that didn't come on at all this game.
Yeah, the front three, like Adeyemi, I think I've been a little more of an Adeyemi fan than a lot of people in more recent times. But I'd argue like he's been pretty hit or miss too. Like he gets his goal every once in a while, but I think overall he's had some pretty average performances. Like along with Bayer, I think he has been probably better than Bayer, but I don't think by much. And I also think like we kind of shooting ourselves in the foot with Bayer. Like sometimes we're playing him as a wing back. He's playing more that double 10 when, I mean, I just see him more as that at striker, and I don't know, we're just playing him. I don't know where we're playing him. I don't know what his best position is, I guess. And I don't know if it's necessarily in that position. I think before this season started, I would have said, yeah, he could play that role, but it doesn't appear that he can. I do think what goes against Duranville is and we haven't seen him in this system really at all, but I definitely see him more as a winger, and this is a different role. And that's why I think you could argue like, yeah, Adeyemi's played winger, but he's also played this like a hybrid striker position as well. Bayer, like I don't see Bayer as a straight up winger either. Brandt seems to be flourishing as of late, at least in this, obviously like in this number 10 role. I also think like what we've seen from Silva, like he is a striker, and he came in to not sit behind on the field, but be behind Guirassy. But we're seeing him as like this really good creator too. Like he's dropping in, and like you mentioned the crosses, it would be interesting to see him in that 10 alongside Brandt feeding Guirassy, and just see what they could do. But I do want to, with all that said, I did want to talk about Guirassy and just talk about this goal drought. His last goal was, I think it was, I had it up, November 25th, where he scored a brace against Villarreal, where he scored 4-0. And before that, October 31st versus Augsburg in the Bundesliga is his last goal. And I'm just thinking, we've obviously been getting goals from elsewhere. Brandt's scored a few. Chukwuemeka had one of was it the winner, or was that the Hamburg match where they tied it late? But like we're seeing other people contribute. But do you think Do you see any results swinging a little differently, maybe ones that didn't go our way if Guirassy was producing? Or are we seeing enough from other people?
I don't think things would have been changing too much different because at the end of the day, we were conceding these goals and not necessarily. I mean, at least in most circumstances, it was more of, holding a lead rather than trying to actually get more goals. But yeah, even in that game against Villarreal where Guirassy got a brace, one was a header right before halftime, which you could argue was a little fortunate. And then he missed a penalty right after halftime and then just had to tap in after that too. So a goal's a goal. I understand he got on the board. He got 2 goals for us. He was the one that, pushed us forward to actually get a 4-0 result against a good team like Villarreal. I understand that. But outside of that, yeah, he looks very mentally checked out. He looks slow and just not up to the standard that I think Silva is actually producing at right now too. And the thing with Duranville, I mean, Adeyemi's been doing this pretty well for the most part these past few weeks where he's engaging in these 1v1s and he's an absolute menace coming into the attacking third, if not even in opposition's 18-yard box. It's very hard for them to handle him. And Duranville, I think, is the exact same way. He's super agile, super smooth on the ball, fantastic with dribbling, wants to take an opponent on in those 1v1 situations and go ISO. Bayer's not that player. Brandt's really not that player either. Guirassy certainly isn't. I don't think Silva's got a little bit of technical ability in him, sure, but that's not a knock to him. I just don't think he's that kind of player. This team doesn't really have anyone outside of Adeyemi to do that at the moment. So that's got to be another argument for Duranville to get into this team in some capacity. It's another young player that Kovac is continuing to refuse to use. Not even in the front line, but the back line as well. Felipe Omande, I haven't seen him once since beginning of the season. Yeah,
I forgot about him, honestly.
There's plenty of other ones. Cole Campbell, too, could be playing in the front line. He's not maybe at the consistent level as Bayer, but at this point, he needs to be getting some sort of minutes. Because I'm even seeing reports now that Campbell is looking to go on loan, if not just make a move here in the winter. Duranville, same thing. I know you're asking just about Guirassy, but it stems, it's a larger problem than that, but he's definitely a part of it.
Yeah, and I mean, we went from Guirassy last year being what Kovac said, our insurance or like our life insurance, who would just get a goal when we absolutely needed it, and then just a few more on top of that. Like he was just got so many goals for us, and now, yeah, it's like 4 or 5 match spans without a goal. Like there is a problem there. I think, while I do think Silva has been putting on good performances, like he just needs to score more. Like he's getting assists, but I think if he can get a goal or a couple, that's really going to, then maybe from that, he'll have more of an opportunity to get the start. Because as we get in the look ahead of the Freiburg match, not jumping too far ahead, but I do think Guirassy is going to get the start again because that's just the rotation they've been on a little bit. Like Guirassy's starting in the Bundesliga and Silva's been in the Cup or Champions League competition. So I do think it's going to go back to that. But I don't know. I would argue for his sake to start. I don't think it should be a fitness issue at all. I think he should be able to start. And I wouldn't mind seeing it. And then we went from, I think this is what we said coming in, like us being pretty down on the Silva signing off the bat. It's like, prove us wrong, or like come in and produce and do it. And he's doing the work. And now I want to see more of him, and I want to see him get another goal. I know he's got a couple, but I want to see him get that and get more opportunities, especially if it means like pushing Guirassy. Because we're not getting the production we need from Guirassy right now at all.
Yeah, Silva's been a very pleasant surprise. I mean, we mentioned before that we needed someone to just come in because Guirassy can't play 90 minutes 3 times a week for, the entire season. It's not feasible. Of course, it's going to be coming back to blow up in your face. So that, and we always thought that would, be a big help with having someone coming off the bench like that for Silva. But at this point, I mean, if we can make some money off Guirassy in the winter and he's that mentally checked out, Silva could be that player going forward just for these next few months. And then we can reevaluate here in the summer when we do yet another massive squad overhaul. That's our favorite part of the year. We continue to say that, but yeah, who knows?
And then, I mean, everything you said about Duranville too, and Campbell, like, I think you could argue if these guys were getting minutes and getting opportunities, like I know Duranville's always had so many injury issues as well. And I don't want to I still want to see him get his opportunity, but I'd even argue, like, say something crazy happens and Guirassy does leave in the winter. I'd argue we still have enough depth if these guys are getting the opportunity. We haven't seen them at all. So who knows where they're at. And obviously Kovac doesn't think they're players that we can get much of right now.
And it's not only a fitness thing either. I've been watching these press conferences and people are asking Kovac about that. Like, is it a fitness thing? Are there injuries? And that's the default answer. Just there's a lot of competition in this squad right now. It's making it very difficult for a lot of players to get minutes. And it just goes back to the same points I was making already.
I do want to pivot this conversation just slightly back into the field, the midfield specifically, because this is where an area where I do think there's been good rotation and we're getting some decent production. I think early on in Joe Bellingham's, like his first few matches, I think I was down on him a bit. We obviously talked about the price tag bringing him in, and that's kind of the Bellingham tax, the name tax we're signing him on. And then we weren't quite seeing that production. And I mean, one thing I always try to just give players time. I probably didn't give him enough credit early on, even though I love preaching about you got to give players time. Like Adeyemi's first year, I was so adamant that like you got to give him time, and people would argue with
we're
me.
On year 3 now with Adeyemi.
I know people,
he's
that's
still
what
a toss up.
People still argue with me, but I do think the player management in the midfield has been pretty good. Mech has pretty much been locked in starter, but then we're seeing this rotation where Sabitzer's getting minutes, Bellingham's getting minutes. And I think now we're seeing a little more just higher quality performances on a consistent level, even if it's consistent with rotation. But I think managing his minutes and letting him ease in the team a little more, maybe he's taken some pressure off him, where he still started some big games like in the Cups and in Champions League. Even if it's against Bodø, it's like it's still a Champions League match and it's good for him to get that experience. I think that is an area where it's been better, and we're like, we haven't been forcing. Well, I like Pascal Gross. Like, I think we're seeing him more the role we expected that first year. We played so many minutes, and now where it's like he's coming on when we need him to. And besides, like, we're not seeing Özcan at all right now. It's all Mecha, Sabitzer, and Bellingham, and I do feel like that's a decent rotation going on, just as far as managing those minutes throughout. And then I think same argument, you talked about Couto and his performance and output. I mean, he's a player we talked about last year, we were not fans at all. And now, because he got some time now, and now he's maybe a little more settled in the squad, we're getting a lot more production out of him. And I also agree, like it's hard for me to pick like a starting 11 in this, like Ryerson or Couto. Like, I don't know what our best starting 11 is. And that's where I think in some teams that can be a bad thing when you don't know your best 11. But I feel like in some positions throughout, like it's kind of a toss up. Like, do you want Ryerson or do you want Couto today? And it kind of depends on, they have different characteristics obviously on the pitch. So it's kind of like, what do you want? And then same thing with the back line. Like I mentioned early on with the starting 11, like Ansel Mino getting some minutes now. Of course, him and Anton are out for a couple weeks as we head into the winter break. So it's going to be really interesting what we see in this back line. But I think leading up to this point, it's been decent rotation throughout. I don't know if you have anything to add, if you want to argue or if you agree or anything.
You mentioned Sully Özcan. Remember him?
Who? No, that's I feel like I mentioned that as like probably a good thing that we're not playing him too much. I'm sorry, Özcan, but like
of 20 minutes, I think, 21 minutes in total across all competitions this season so far. Yeah, who is the correct question for Özcan? Ansel Mino and Anton. The latest I've seen from Kovac in this press conference here earlier was just saying they need more testing. Reports are looking, it's speculation at that point, but it could be a few weeks for both of them. We're going to need another starter in that back line with Schlotterbeck, maybe Ben Zabaini, and Sula was on the bench, so it's got to be him, right? I mean, with his wages, with his stature, with his spirit, experience, it has to be him. And he has to step up into this team and try to take his role back for the 17th millionth time since he's been in Dortmund alone. But yeah, that's the back
Chan
line,
is a shout too.
Yeah, sadly, both of those are.
I mean, we've been seeing him more than we've been seing him more than Sula. I know Sula's been injured.
No, both
but
are just not
seeing
ideal.
Chan. Yeah,
and
but
outside of that factory, I'm gonna go with the midfield of Svensson, Mecha, and Bellingham midfield. I think Couto is for the moment taking that starting spot. As much as I love Ryerson, I give it to Couto at the moment. And then if we're doing a 3-4-3, I'm doing Silva, Adeyemi, and Duranville.
Durant in there. How many minutes has he played this year? I mean, I love the confidence, but I love that you're just throwing him in there.
Close to none. I'm just saying he's fit. He's ready to go. Last thing before on Glimt, we didn't talk about Reus coming home too. Just got to mention that. Being a part of the fans, chanting with the Tribuna, and his story just felt like a little kid going to a game too. So this makes my heart full seeing him back home and as an ambassador now of the club.
I love seeing the video where he's just walking back, like kind of in the locker room area before the walkout tunnel. And he's like, I have goosebumps. Like, it's so cool. Like seeing him so happy and like getting that emotional, like, I mean, for obvious reasons, but it's cool seeing that and having him experience that. But I also think the best part is when Bodø scores and it just pans to Marco Reus hood up.
Yeah, hood up. He's all disappointed. He's like, oh, shit. I can feel the energy around me now.
He's like, what happened to them scoring 4 goals every Champions League night? But yeah, so cool to see him back. Let's talk about BVB Frauen before we move on to Freiburg in the winter break.
God, the last update we had was right before the Riviera Derby here between the two teams, which unfortunately we lost on that one. And now Dortmund are in the district tournament, the Kreisturnier, before the long break in the Regionalliga West. They have a big winter break too. Estes Winterpause. The break is actually quite long compared to the men's league. It goes from now, kind of only like mid-December all the way to the next game in the Regionalliga West for Dortmund is March 15th against Gladbach 2. And there are some friendlies scheduled beforehand as well after this tournament. So there's going to be some football for BVB Frauen. It's just not going to be in that division. But for example, one of those friendlies actually right before Gladbach 2, a few days before, is going to be Gladbach's first team. So we're going to have a go at both of those teams, one in a non-competitive match and then back into the Regionalliga West after that. But yeah, we got to wait 3 months almost on the dot to see them back in their division, which is a little sad, but at least they get a nice break. They got some different competitions to go for in between there as well. Outside of that, they most recently drew to Köln's U21s, who Köln are still in first in their division. BVB Frauen are in second. 3 points separate us from first place and third place. Leverkusen are below us. So, we're still up there. Just haven't been able to leapfrog Köln, unfortunately, with that opportunity we had to play them recently. But still pretty solid for the most part, too. Only 2 losses this season so far in the league.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've noticed the last week or two on Paramount Plus, if you're watching Champions League, like there's been so much more coverage for the women's Champions League, which is really cool. I know they've had I think Paramount has the rights for the women's Super League in England, and there is opportunities to catch women's football, and I know BVB Frauen are not near the Champions League. They got quite a bit more to climb, but it is it's just exciting to see. I think the women's game, I feel like I've not seen much coverage about the women's Champions League until really recently. So I don't know. I don't know what that was exactly. I don't know if it's just match days lining up or them actually getting more of an investment or getting more rights to show those games. But it just got me thinking. It was like, oh, this is really cool. And it's cool to see it. They were kind of cross promoting, or they were talking about men's Champions League matches and then tossing it over to the women's commentators to preview those matches. And it was just cool to see this very holistic football coverage, not just the men's game, but the women's as well. And with that, with how much we've been kind of just following the journey of the BVB Frauen, it's been so cool to see over the last few years. So just exciting times. So yeah, and especially if they just keep climbing.
Yeah, I was just about to say we'll be there eventually. Hopefully here pretty soon. I mean, only a few more divisions to go at this point.
Yeah, I just don't know if Paramount Plus is still going to be the ones covering it, but someone will. Might be ESPN. Yeah. I don't know, TV. I don't know how long their TV rights deal is going.
Whichever one it is.
Yeah, so it's exciting. And BVB Frauen, speaking of streaming, you are able to catch some of those games. They do a lot on the just BVB Twitch channel, I think. And then if you want to get
channel
more,
too,
YouTube. And if you want to get more info about the BVB Frauen, we've got a link in the description of this episode, so make sure you check that out. All right, looking ahead, we did kind of preview Freiburg a little bit just as far as lineup and who we think might start and the injuries and everything. But just a couple matches left before the winter break. We're away at Freiburg this Sunday. It is a 9:30 Eastern time kickoff. And then Friday, the 19th, is the final match before the break. We are home to Gladbach. And I just want to get your predictions on how we end 2025.
I'm hoping we get 6 out of 6 points. I don't think that's unrealistic by any means, and we need to be more demanding to not only shorten the gap between us and Bayern, but we need to be above Leipzig. That needs to be bare minimum too, in my opinion. And just after the disappointment that we've had in recent weeks across all competitions, there just needs to be a higher standard, and we have some pretty favorable draws here coming up. It seems like we played like Gladbach around this time every year, right towards the end of December. I swear it's been like 3 out of the last 4 seasons, if I'm not wrong. But either way, Freiburg are kind of the same boat in the sense that they're up and down. I mean, 2 losses out of their last 5 games, and also 2 wins out of their last 5 games as well, and just 1 draw. So they're kind of up and down as well. They're pretty similar to Hoffenheim in the sense that they're a very intense, direct team. They're not afraid to shy from challenges, and they usually produce a very intense and tight game between us as well, especially when we're away. So it's not going to be easy by any means. It's going to be very extremely difficult, but I think in the end, it's still very achievable.
Yeah, I think it could be tight, but I think we'll pull out the win. Do you think Guirassy scores?
God, I hope so. No, though, I don't.
No. Silva, get a goal, just please. Maybe Durnville. Who knows? I don't know. Yeah. And then Gladbach, the Reina derby. I think we should be able to win that one. It'll be interesting to see if Reina starts. I haven't been watching all the Gladbach games, but I always check to see if he's getting any minutes. Of course, the biased U.S. fan in me, I would love to see him get a nice run. And I know he recently got into the USMNT camp, and he played one match where I think he got a goal, maybe a couple assists, like had a pretty good showing for the U.S. As we get closer to the World Cup, I'm big Gio Reyna fan, so I just want to see him do good things. I would prefer him not to do good things against Dortmund on Friday the 19th, but I'm always cheering for him. So hopefully things just go well for him leading up to the World Cup. Yeah, hopefully we can get sick.
Gladbach are finding some good form too as of late.
Yeah,
that's all I was just going to say. I mean, besides the loss to St. Pauli, they've won, I think, like 4 out of their last 5 games.
Yeah, but I don't want to end the podcast by just talking about Gio Reyna and Gladbach. So I will say I think we get 6 out of 6 points as we head into the winter break. We can have a nice merry Dortmund Christmas and a couple weeks off, even though Carver and I have been taking a couple weeks off for most of this season, but we're going to try to be better. No, we appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. You can have not plugged it once yet, so join our Discord, especially as we gear up for the match this week. If you want to chat Dortmund, if you want to talk all the things on match day, leading up to match day, and everything in between. And I mean, it's not just Dortmund talk. Carver's got talking about music in there, and there's a few other just random channels in there too. And if you want to talk USMNT, if you want to talk Premier League, if you want to talk other stuff, if you just want to,
we got a World Cup channel too. Remember?
Yeah, if you want to just meet with some fellow Dortmund fans, make sure you join our Discord. And yeah, we appreciate you guys hanging out, listening. We will see you guys later.